Cheers! Cheers! How do you do, Buckaroos? And how the heck are you? I am Tom the Beer Whisperer, but you know that. Hey, joining me at the pub today is actor, author, and craft beer guy Mark Aldrich. So you're kind of like the like this millennia's version of a Renaissance man, aren't you?
In my own very small sort of way, yes.
There you go. Hey, what are you drinking, man? Tell me what you're drinking at the pub.
I am drinking, and we got lucky because I don't often get my hands on this. Excuse me while I pour. So you mentioned the craft beer aficionado part. So for the last 14, 15 years, I've been one of the happy hour guys on the internet. It's a web series. We have about 400 episodes out, and we're still going. But we did something called the Broadway Brews Project over the last few years, and where we would take a Broadway cast and pair them up with a local craft brewery.
Oh,
And
really? Wow.
they would all get together and they would make a beer. They would choose a style, choose a name. The actors would go to the brewery on a specific day, make the beer, and then we'd have a big release party. And each beer was made to benefit a specific charity, and the brewery and the show got to decide what it was. So today, and this is a good one. So today I'm drinking Rise Up Rye from Gun Hill Brewing in the Bronx, here in the city. And this was our very first Broadway brew. So this came up in 2016, and it was made with the cast of Hamilton. And they chose for their charity Graham Windham, which is actually kind of an amazing story. It helps underprivileged children to this day, but it is actually it is the direct descendant and still is the orphanage that Eliza Hamilton founded way back, and it's actually mentioned at the end of the show of Hamilton, and they're still going. They're doing amazing things in the world. And so this was the first beer that came out of it, but it was so successful that Gun Hill Brewing made it part of their flagship rotation. So you can still get this beer today, even though it's 7 years later. It's really great. It's a light rye saison. It's won lots of awards, including at the GABF. It was poured at Madison Square Garden for a season or two. It was at Citi Field for a season or two. And I did a great event last weekend with Dave Lopez, one of the owners of the brewery. And the beer that they chose to pour that day, and I'm glad that they did because it was over 90 degrees in an outdoor event, was Rise Up Rye. So that's how I ended up with some of this today, because it doesn't happen.
Awesome.
Sorry,
what's the ABV on that, Mark?
The ABV is it's pretty low. It is, I should know off the top. This is something I should know off the top of my head. 4.8. I know I was about to say 4.9, but it's 4.8. Yeah. So cheers. What are you drinking?
Well, I've got one left. That's my last one of these. A few months ago, a small production brewery in Washington, Missouri, invited me up for a private tour and tasting. This one's from Deep Sleep Brewing. Washington, Missouri is about 3 hours from Springfield, where I'm located. It's in the St. Louis area.
Okay.
It's a 10.1%. It's their double IPA, or
nice.
Imperial IPA.
Very nice.
Let me show it to you. It looks like a big West Coaster.
Yeah, it does. That's
dark gold. Yeah.
Well, virtually, cheers.
Cheers, sláinte, if you will. Yeah. You know what? Every once, so that one kind of caught me off guard. They, I guess, got this call out of the blue from the folks at Deep Sleep, and they said, "We saw your videos. Want to know if you can come up for a tour and tasting?" So that was a lot of fun.
That's great. Yeah.
So I picked up a lot of beer when I was out there. This is my last double IPA, though.
I understand. I always hold on tight to the last one of the
what I know. And the thing is, I didn't want to age it too long, though. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I didn't want to, okay, it's time. This is a good place to drink it.
Yeah.
So what's going on in your neck of the woods? I know you're in the New York area.
I am. I'm in New York City. Been here for a couple of decades at this point, which is crazy to me. I never thought I would say that. I am a professional actor. That's what brought me to the city in the first place, and that's actually how I met my business partner in the Happy Hour guys. We're both actors, and I've performed on Broadway for a few years, and I've done a bunch of TV and some film stuff. And then, like I said, that led to the Happy Hour guys, and we got all those episodes online. And then during the lockdown, when that entire industry was shuttered, there was nothing going on for people in our line of work.
Yeah, wow.
I pivoted, but because I still wanted to get my creative juices flowing, so I wrote a book during the shutdown.
So tell us about that. What genre is the book?
It's an urban fantasy.
Urban fantasy, okay.
Which is not something I thought I was going to write when I sat down, but that's what came out.
That's what it ended up.
It is, and it sort of combines a bunch of things that I really love. It combines live theater, music, which is a big part of my life, travel, which is something dear to me, and there's a lot of craft beer references in there, and then different folklore and cultures from around the world. All those stories sort of weave in there, and
nice.
it follows a group of actors who have some unfortunate things befall them and what they have to do to get out of the situation.
And you got the second book coming out soon, right?
I do. The second book I think is going to be out next week. So that's about 5 weeks ahead of schedule, which is
nice.
not what I expected to happen, but that's the way it worked out. Yeah.
So if someone like me tried to find the book, would Amazon be the place?
Yes, Amazon is the place. It's available right now. It's called The Peripherals.
The Peripherals. Okay, I'll look for it.
It's available.
I'll probably have my wife look for it. She's better at that sort of thing than I am. But yeah,
it's available in paperback. It's available in Kindle, and it's available in Kindle Unlimited. If you happen to have a subscription to Kindle Unlimited, it's actually free to read. So.
Oh, it is. Okay, awesome.
Yeah. So so that's it, and doing well. And again, the life is full of many things that you never expect you're going to be doing, and that's one of them. But I'm having a great time.
So is this going to be a continuing saga?
It is. It's. I've got plans for 5 books in this series, and then there's another spin-off series that's going to come out of book 2, and then we'll just see where it goes from there.
That's incredible, man. That's incredible.
Thanks.
So any acting gigs coming up soon?
I'm actually cutting my teeth doing something different for a change. I'm actually directing some early readings of a new musical.
Really?
And again, talk about things that I didn't really think I'd be doing at this point. Early in my career, I did some directing, and then I moved away from it because the acting jobs were coming, and that's where everything led. But someone I know very well wrote a musical, and it's very personal to him, and he wanted someone that he felt like he could trust with the material and could be, open with. And so he came to me, and I agreed to do it. So we've had one reading, and we're going to have another reading in October, and probably another one in November, and then we're going to see where it goes from there. But it's again, totally not something I would have expected. But he lived through. He worked on Wall Street and lived through 9/11.
Oh gosh.
And it was, as you would imagine, a very intense experience for him. And he left Wall Street and sort of turned into a rock and roll guy, and has been playing music ever since, and has had memorial concerts every year, and decided over the last couple of years that he thought he wanted to make a stage version of what he's been doing. And they made a documentary out of it, which is doing really well. And so now its next phase seems to be a stage show. So that's where we're going.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Nice. So what would be the plans for that type of show?
Well, I mean, every show takes a different path. It's really difficult to get a show anywhere, to be honest with you. This one has a pretty good pedigree, and his music's really good. So we'll do a couple of readings here in the city, which could lead to either a workshop or an out-of-town production, or depending on who steps forward. And there is some independent film producer money attached already. Then maybe it would jump to off-Broadway or Broadway, depending on how the development goes. But the plan is to get it in front of as many people as possible.
Okay. Yeah. So is this someone I would know, or is this someone you can mention the name of?
Oh, sure. It's his name is Tim Tuttle. The name of the documentary is called 44 Lights.
Okay, all right.
the number of lights that they shine into the sky every year here in New York City to commemorate the 9/11 and everyone that was lost. And like I said, it's a deeply personal story for him, and it's sort of sparked all of this creativity from a guy who was working on Wall Street at the time. So it's a fascinating story.
Crazy.
Yeah, it's a really interesting story.
None of us ever know where we're going to end up, do we?
We do not. No. And then I mentioned to you earlier, I did a pretty cool concert here earlier, a couple months ago here in the city, the 25th anniversary of the Broadway production of Ragtime, which has a bunch of huge Broadway stars in it. And I was not in the original production, but they asked me to be part of it because one of the original actors was unavailable. So lucky me, I got to be in it. And it was just an unbelievable night. Fans of musical theater and theater in general will be thrilled if they get a chance to see it. And it was recorded. I don't know where or when it's going to pop up, but I've been told that it will. So everybody's going to have a chance to see it. But the Ragtime 25th anniversary concert, and obviously I'll let as many people as are paying attention know when I find out where it's going to go. No.
Yeah, when you find out, let me know for sure. Yeah,
I will. I think people are going to just really love it. It was one of those nights, that where New York seemed to stop, and the only thing that people were paying attention to that night in New York City was that concert. And and it doesn't happen very often. And these were stars of the first order in the Broadway world, and they'll probably never all be together in the same room again, which is the nature of our business. But it made it a really, really unique experience, especially for me, who hadn't been there with them at the start. But to be a fly on the wall and see their brilliance was pretty darn cool.
Well, I got to be honest. I know absolutely zero about Broadway. I've never been in that direction. But what can you tell us about the current trends out there?
Oh gosh, it's all over the place. Really, especially coming out of the pandemic and the lockdown. New York was obviously, every place was hit hard. New York was hit particularly hard. And our industry, as I mentioned earlier, just completely stopped for basically 18 months. So we're still finding our footing. There's a lot of new writers, a lot of new works coming up now, which is very exciting to see new voices and new talents being seen. And I think, it's an incremental process. So we're still getting there, but we're all still here, and we're still making theater and hopefully making people happy.
Good. Are most of the theaters still thriving, or thriving again might be a better way to put that?
We're getting there. The big hits are doing great.
Yeah.
And audiences understandably are still a little hesitant to take chances on things. It's not inexpensive to spend the night at a Broadway show, and a lot of people have had a really tough couple of years. So
yeah, that's truth.
Yeah, I understand it. But like I said, we're getting there. The numbers are getting better every month, every year. So it's just a matter of time. Broadway is so woven into the fabric of New York City that it's certainly not going to go anywhere.
Well, 3 years since 2020, are you seeing folks getting out more and more? Are you still seeing?
Oh yeah,
folks.
People are definitely out more.
Okay.
We lost a lot of businesses, a lot of sort of local storefronts, and even some breweries, and it hit, as you well know, it hit the craft brewing world really hard as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're definitely bouncing back, and people are out and about and spending money and meeting their friends and having a meal and a drink out. It's we're getting there.
We're good. Yeah. It was kind of. I'm here in the Midwest, I suppose you'd call it. I'm not quite Midwest. We're not quite South either, where I am. But yeah, it hit us pretty hard as well. Mostly the mom and pop business got hit hardest.
Yeah.
Because Walmart stayed open. The big stores stayed open. They were able to. I tell you one thing that just confused the living crap out of me. And it doesn't have anything to do with our conversation, really, other than the stores, other than it just irritated me through 2020s. We have there's a large sporting goods chain called Academy Sports. You probably have them in your neck of the woods.
We don't, actually.
they're just a huge sporting goods store, has everything, right? I mean, they've got shoes, clothing, this, that, any, camping gear, anything for any kind of sport, they've got it. I happen to be a guy that likes to be outside on my smoker, and they happen to have the largest selection of wood available. So during 2020, I called there to try to get some wood.
Right.
And the only thing they were allowed to sell during that pandemic era was firearms. So I'm telling you, during a time where people were tense anyway, you've got a store that offers shoes, clothing, just about every camping gear, anything that people might want. And the governor, the city, well, I guess the state of Missouri only allowed them to sell firearms. Could you make sense out of that? Because I couldn't.
No, you stumped me with that one. There were a lot of confusing messages coming out at that time, and if I had heard that one, I would have added it to the list, to be honest with you.
I was so angry. I did this post on Facebook at the time, and I had a cousin of mine just argue with me about it. Well, why don't you want people to have guns? I'm not saying people can't have guns. All I'm saying is I want some freaking wood. That's all I'm saying. Right. Sell me the damn wood. I'm not saying someone, some tense joker in this neck of the woods doesn't deserve to have that gun he can go shoot somebody with. But why can't I buy wood?
That one's a mystery to me, I have to confess.
Oh, very sorry about that. I get wound up sometimes.
I understand. That's a very confusing policy.
Every once in a while, I go full Andy Rooney for no reason. And I'm getting eyebrows. I'm getting close. The older I get, those eyebrows are starting to go full Andy Rooney.
I know they grow a mind of their own, don't they? They take over.
And I've got this one hair. My wife pulls it every once in a while. I got this one hair that goes straight out the middle of my forehead. The funny thing is I never see it till it's about 2 inches long. I never catch it growing. My wife will pull that sucker out. It's always about 2 inches long. How do I not know it's there?
I don't notice as much because I'm still getting used to having to wear these.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I don't think to grab them and put them on very often. So as a result, I think a lot of the world is still fuzzy to me. And you know what? Maybe that's okay. I don't know.
That's funny. No, I think I first, met virtual, I should say, because of the podcast. I think that's how I first came across you, and then on Facebook.
Oh, yeah, so, probably. Yeah.
So having said that, since we are a craft beer kind of a show here, other than the podcast, what else have you done with craft beer? And I also want to know what the scene is like in your neck of the woods.
Oh, wow. Well, I'll take the first part first. It was funny because the web series actually came out of, it wasn't intended to be a craft beer web series necessarily. We were at the beginning of the craft movement, especially in this neck of the woods. And we were more interested in like historic bars and pubs and taverns and things like that. But the craft beer industry grew up around us as we were doing it. So we sort of fell into step with them. We met some amazing people, and then it took off from there. And so as a result, we've been consultants with restaurant groups. We've helped curate beer lists. We judged the crushies every year, and some beer festivals, and we've designed labels. We've been all over the place. Basically, we've been to GABF multiple times, and we just became part of the community here in our neck of the woods and beyond, because we're both actors. We get to travel a lot, and as a result, I've been to breweries in probably every state except for Alaska, which I need to knock off the list for many reasons. I just want to go. But, so we've been around a lot, and we've made a lot of really, really good friends through all of our work on the web series and our interactions with them, and as far as how the industry is going here in the city, like I said, the last couple of years have been tough.
Yeah.
Especially when everything was shut down and it was all you could get was beer to go here. That hit a bunch of breweries really hard. We lost a few that we didn't expect to, but things are on the rebound now. We're actually seeing some new storefronts opening up, which is very exciting. We're seeing a lot of expansion with some of our local favorites, also very, very exciting. And New York especially New York City, and part of it is probably because real estate is so precious here. Um, was a little lagged a little behind in the
Mhm.
craft beer boom. You know, it for a while we were a little bit of a wasteland. We didn't have very many breweries to show for it, and we've turned that around in a big way in the last 10 years. And now some of the, there's some just world class beer coming out of New York City now, and it's exciting to watch. And it's a challenging environment for people who want to open a brewery here, but there are a lot of people who feel strongly about craft beer and about New York City. And when you combine the two, you can get a lot done. So we are definitely booming here and putting out some great beer.
Are there certain areas of New York City that are more craft beer prone than others?
Uh, well, there's the Long Island City neighborhood in Queens has a
Hmm.
nice cluster of breweries. You can walk from brewery to brewery. Big Alice is there.
Now would that be more working class?
Yeah, it's industrial working class, but like most neighborhoods in New York, it's starting to gentrify. It's starting to see
Gotcha.
an
Okay.
uptick in like new construction and new housing and things like that. That always happens. The the breweries tend to find the most logically inexpensive neighborhoods to move into, and then they make that neighborhood popular, and then everybody else wants to move there. And then they move there, and then the
Damn
breweries
them
can't afford it,
breweries.
and then they need to find another place. So that happens all the time here. We're used to that. That and Brooklyn. I mean, all over Brooklyn, there it's just a huge mecca for brewing.
Yeah.
We don't have a whole lot going on in Manhattan at the time, but we have one excellent brewery in Manhattan, right? A couple of really good breweries in Manhattan right now. Gun Hill, which is the brewery I mentioned with
Hmm.
Rise Up, they're actually up in the Bronx.
Right.
Um,
Okay.
so we've got a couple breweries up there as well. But I'd say the biggest clusters are definitely in Brooklyn, and then a few over in Queens as well.
Gotcha. Oh, bless you. There you go.
Yeah,
Allergies.
allergies. I know.
Is it bad in your neck of the woods? It's been terrible this year here.
It's been worse than usual. I normally don't have allergies, and I felt them this year, most definitely. Yeah, but
Well,
that
I grew up in Southern California, and I never had allergies till I moved to Missouri.
right? Yeah, yeah. Um, Speaking of the pseudo Midwest, I was actually in Columbus, Ohio,
Oh, really? Okay.
when on tour with a show when everything shut down, and my wife was actually in the show with me, which
Oh, really? Wow.
never happens. Um, and she was sick at the time. In hindsight, we think she had COVID, but of course at the time
Oh,
nobody
God. You
nobody
didn't
knew.
know? Yeah.
But when we first closed down, they said, "Oh, it'll probably only be a couple of weeks. We'll see. We're going to play it by ear. We'll see what happens." It ended up being over a year, but at the beginning, we didn't know that. So we stayed in Columbus to wait it
Mhm.
out and to see what would happen, and to let her get better, which very thankfully she did. And what we stayed in Columbus on our own. Everybody else was gone, and we stayed in a huge 240 room hotel in downtown Columbus for
Oh, gosh.
six and a half weeks
Oh, my Lord. What,
by
six and a half
ourselves.
weeks? Wow.
We were basically alone. Um,
Yeah. Were you quarantined?
we she was. I mean, she was self
Self-imposed?
she was self quarantined because
Okay.
but um, and of course at that point nobody really knew what was going on.
Yeah.
So you could you could still get food to go at certain
Hmm.
area restaurants, um, and very quickly you could get beer to go. So
Yeah.
for 6.5 weeks, I explored the Columbus, Ohio brewing scene, and like trying to do my little tiny piece to help them all stay afloat. Um, but Columbus, Ohio now will always have a special place in my heart because of that experience.
That's funny. Well, there are some good breweries in Columbus.
Oh,
You
there's
might
some
want to
great
get.
breweries there. Yeah,
Yeah. So when it first happened here, I think I can't remember exactly how long. Everything shut down except for what they deemed essential. Right.
right.
Liquor stores could stay open, but they closed all the breweries down.
Oh,
So when the breweries were allowed to open again, they didn't allow them to let folks in, but they allowed them to sell beer to go.
yes,
And,
same.
and that for me is probably the best thing to come out of that era was curbside.
Yep.
So a lot of places would run specials. So we had one particular brewery in town. Every Tuesday they would do what they call a brewer's case special for $28. You get a case of beer for $28, and it was just a brewer's case. It was four different six packs. They picked them out. But it was all good craft beer, right? It wasn't
Right.
hams. It was all good craft beer, right?
Yeah.
So I do that. But since I knew I was doing that every Tuesday, I would make the rounds. Or other smaller breweries that didn't do six packs, they would do crowlers or growlers, and they'd run those specials. So I would order from everybody that was having a special and just take Tuesday and make a circle back home.
Yeah.
I go park, they'd put it in the car because you just paid for online. So all you had to do is,
Yeah.
they'd open the trunk, I'd unlock it, they'd open the trunk, put the beer in, I go on my merry way. I thought that was beautiful, man.
Yep, I did the same. I now have hats and T-shirts from breweries in Columbus because I was just trying to do anything to help people out. I'm not getting all sorts of paraphernalia, which I'm happy about. That's actually a good thing. That makes me glad.
Oh, mercy. So you said you've hit every state except Alaska?
I believe that is correct. Yeah,
Now,
I
have you been,
definitely have.
I
I'm
know
trying
you've
to,
hit Missouri, but have you been to my neck of the woods in Springfield? Have you hit that area?
I've driven through Springfield, but I don't believe I've actually like settled down there. I haven't spent multiple days there. I've passed through.
Going through, yeah. It
Yeah.
says to me that's how it is. We're on the way to this or that, yeah.
Well, when I was on tour, and I've been on tour with a few shows now, when I tour, I like to drive.
Uh-huh.
So it's just easier because then you sort of set your own course and you're in charge of your own time, and you don't have to travel with a group of 60 or 70 or 100 people every Monday or every
Yeah,
2 weeks or whatever. So I've driven most of the country. On my 2 tours ago, I was out for 2.5 years. I drove coast to coast 6 times.
Oh my good Lord. Wow, that's crazy.
I loved it. I loved every second of it. I just turn on the music and go. So
Wow, that's amazing.
see something I like, I stop. If I don't, keep going.
So
Yeah.
any favorite stories from any of those tours?
Oh my gosh, I have many favorite stories. I mean, one of my favorite days was off the coast of Washington. I was playing Seattle at the time, but I drove north and caught a day trip out on a boat, and we ended up spending the day chasing a pod of orcas around
Oh wow.
off the coast of Washington. That was an amazing day. I somehow lucked into a personal airboat tour of the Everglades once. So I
Oh my goodness.
went
Wow.
almost 3 hours with my guide, just me and him on the boat, and he took me to all the secret places that most people don't get to see, and we basically had wild alligators half into the boat, and he wasn't concerned, so I let him lead the way, and I stayed back. But and I went to some world famous tiki bars around the country, which is a sort of a favorite pastime of mine, and I've seen and done more things around this country than I ever thought I'd have a chance to do. There was
That's
a
amazing.
whale watch off of Massachusetts, on
Oh
the
wow.
Grand Banks off of Massachusetts, and we lucked into, there'd been a big storm the night before, and what I didn't know was that usually brings the whales to the surface to feed, and so at one point we had over 24 humpback whales surrounding the boat, all
Oh wow.
eating and feeding, and so yeah, I mean, I've seen most of the big sites to see in the country, and a lot of the small ones too, including
Wow.
the largest ball of twine.
Now where was that at? Where was the largest ball of twine?
There are 2 competing balls of twine.
Uh-huh.
There's one, I believe it's in Minnesota, and then there's
Uh-huh.
one down in Kansas. And I saw the southerly one. And
Okay.
I forget now what the distinction is, but they each claim that theirs was built differently, so they can each claim to be the largest of their kind.
Gotcha.
But I did drive. I think I drove 5 hours out of the way to see that ball of twine, and it was totally worth it.
Yeah, I'm the perfect tourist too. I go out of the way to see stuff like that. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I try to stay off the main roads. I love to go to places nobody else is going to. Yeah.
That's how I am too. Yep. We'll have to take a road trip together.
Hey, anytime. Hey, so any breweries that really sparked the memory when you're making those tours?
There were so many.
Any of them stand out for one reason or another?
I mean, it's funny just because of recent events. Anchor.
Oh yeah.
As a great experience. I was going to be drinking Anchor tonight until I found this beer that we helped make. It's such a blur now. I mean, there were some really poignant moments in Columbus. Actually,
Mhm.
we were
Yeah.
there. Everyone was going through so much that to be able to talk to someone through the doorway or the window, what you know.
Yeah.
But in terms of breweries specifically, I'm going through the Rolodex in my brain. Um, I mean, Surly up in
Mhm.
Minnesota was fantastic. There were a couple of breweries down in Texas that I love very much. One of them makes an IPA called Yellow Rose, which is fantastic.
Wow.
Um, that one leaps out. Um, had a great time at the Sam Adams Brewery when the Irish bar down the street. They used to have a shuttle that went to the Irish bar. It was the first place that ever served Sam
Oh,
Adams.
well, that's nice.
And very sadly, over the last couple of years, that Irish bar, which had been there for
Uh,
generations, has closed. But
oh no, that's
I got to
terrible.
experience that, at the time. Um, and then for me personally, I've been to the Alchemist in Vermont. I've been to a bunch of the Vermont breweries, which in our neck of the woods are sort of legendary. The Alchemist put out Heady Topper,
Yeah, yeah.
which is widely considered to be like the inspiration for all hazy IPAs that came afterwards. And it was an interesting story. That's an interesting story, actually. We met John Kimmick, who is the owner and head brewer there, at GABF one year when he was the Wonder Kid. Nobody knew who he was. All of a sudden, he was winning all these awards. Like, who is this guy? What is this brewery? What's happening? And the Alchemist was just a brew pub at that point, and he was brewing in the basement of this old building in Waterbury, Vermont. And so we met him there, and then decided to take a drive up when we got back to the East Coast to meet him on his home turf and talk to him and find out more about him. And he was so popular at that point, and he really is a beer genius. I mean, he was doing things that were blowing people's minds at that point,
Mhm.
and he's still relevant today, which is amazing. But so his beer was so popular that there was sort of an underground online movement where he didn't package it to go. You could only get it at the brew pub. So people
Yeah.
would go to the brew pub and take their beer to the bathroom and fill a thermos or a bottle or whatever they had on them in the bathroom and cork it up and then sneak it out and then sell it online.
Oh, that's messed up.
Well, he found out and he put a stop to that real fast. But we remember sitting there and talking to him. There was a watermark on the wall. It was an old building, and a watermark on the brick wall. And we are like, "What's that about?" And he said, "Oh, that's from a flood that was generations ago. Luckily, we don't have to worry about stuff like that happening again." And then literally a few weeks later, Irene came through, Hurricane Irene,
Oh gosh.
and just and and leveled them and wiped them out. Um, Luckily, they had been in the midst of building a canning line at the time,
Hmm.
so they still had a lifeline, but the all of their brewing equipment was in the basement. And when they filed their insurance claims, the insurance company came back and said, "We only cover things ground level and above."
Oh, you're kidding. Oh Lord.
So that whole thing was a bust. It was a total loss. Um, but in true craft beer fashion, they pulled themselves up. Their canning line did huge business. They didn't miss a beat, and they broke ground and built what is open now today in Stowe, Vermont, which is essentially a cathedral to beer. I mean, it's so beautiful, um, and allowed them to expand their beer lineup and. They're still hugely relevant. And that space where they had been before that got wiped out by the flood became a wildly popular pub called Prohibition Pig. And they also started brewing their own beer. And then just a couple weeks ago, wouldn't you know it, they were wiped out by a flood.
Oh no. Oh my goodness.
So we're very hopeful that
Oh.
they'll survive and come back. I think they will. They're very popular, and hopefully everybody's learned from experiences in the past. But craft beer fans out there, if you're ever in that neck of the woods, if you're in Vermont, one of your must stop places, and there are many in Vermont. But look up just so you can see pictures of the Alchemist, and it is beautiful. And not only do they make great beer, they're really great people, and they do everything with a real eye towards the environment and being part of their community. It's just a great place to support.
So my heady topper story is back in 2012, a friend sent me one can, and we had a lot going on in 2012, and I, for whatever reason, I had it for about 3 weeks and wasn't able to drink it. So we had to take this kind of impromptu trip up to St. Louis. So we grabbed some stuff, put it in a cooler, and I just threw that one beer in there. So I said, we'll get to the hotel. I'll see if I can drink it. We got in there, and so anyway, so I'd never had it before, and they said at the time to drink it out of the can. And I was in a hotel room. I didn't have a good glass anyway. So I said, screw it. This goes against everything I believe, but I'm going to drink it out of the can. So I did a video for that, and I think I said those exact words. This goes against everything I believe, but they told me to drink it out of the can. I'm going to drink it out of the can. And it's been used as one of the great reaction videos. So Eddie Topper actually, on their Facebook page, picked my video as their favorite. They were doing a contest at the time.
That's
awesome. So I
awesome.
sent them that one. And it was also used, I wish I could remember the name of that video, though. Somebody, I don't know, well known in the craft beer world anyway, did a video about the world's most famous beer or something like that. And they used that beginning, the first few seconds of my video where I popped beer and just took that first drink, and it just the reaction to that first drink. Oh my God. I mean, it just kind of hit me. Oh wow, that's freaking amazing.
It was a game changer at the time.
It was, because it was so different. I mean, 2012, we think about, the hazies and everything else we have now, but 2012, it was a whole different ball game.
Absolutely. Yeah. It blew people's minds. That's why we were at GABF and everybody was talking about it, like, who is this guy? What is this beer? It's so different. Everybody thought about West Coast. We didn't call them West Coast IPAs. They were just IPAs at the time.
Yeah.
But they were all sort of bitter and different colors and piney and all of that stuff. And then he came along and just blew our minds. So he's still doing it.
Yeah, I tell you, I still have memories of that just popping that first one. We got to the hotel and I was dog tired. We finally got everything situated where I could sit down, relax, and have a beer. And I turned on, got my camera ready, and in fact, it was 2012. Phones weren't as good back in 2012 as they are now, so the video quality was a little rough, right? So I'm setting it up, and I'm very technologically challenged anyway. So I'm setting that up, and I just got my beer, and I didn't realize at the time they said to drink it out of the can. So I'm reading the cans. Oh, they drink it out of the can. Okay, well, hell, I don't have a glass here anyway. I popped that sucker. Okay, it's my first beer, and oh my Lord, it was just so amazing.
Yeah. I would imagine back then, especially if that was your first one, that's hard to follow up. Like, where do you go from there?
Well, see, I actually talked so long. I was so amazed by that beer. I actually talked so long that I had to stop the camera and do a part two, because it would have been like an hour-long video of me because I would go on these diatribes about how wonderful this beer was, because it was just killing me. Oh my God, this thing is so amazing.
Yeah. I still, like, every once in a while we'll still get a drop here in New York. For the most part, it's still pretty much confined to his area, but every once in a while we'll get some here in the city, and we just had some a couple weeks ago. It was that and his other sort of more well-known IPA, Focal Banger, and I found both of them in a local store, and it was like Christmas. It was like Christmas in July for me. I was like, I can't believe this is here.
That's wild.
Anytime I see it, I get it.
Yeah.
It's one of those beers for me. I can't help myself.
So I know you might not want to say, but do you have a favorite brewery from your neck of the woods?
Oh wow.
Without getting in trouble or making somebody feel bad, or favorites. Let's say favorites.
I mean, there are a few that sort of are near and dear to my heart, because I feel like I stumbled on them just before they hit it big. Not that I had anything to do with them hitting it big, but that I got to tell people about them before more people knew about them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I have to start with Gun Hill, who made this one. They're up in the Bronx. Their IPAs are fantastic. Their sours, their saisons, everything. But they have a stout series called Void of Light, which is, I mean, they should just retire it from festivals, because it wins practically every time it's entered. It's so good. And they have a whole lineup of it now. They've got barrel aged, they've got coconut, they've got a lot of different varieties, and it's just world class. And they don't get enough love, I don't think. certainly not in New York, but even other places. I mean, that beer is world class. So they're definitely one of my favorites. There's a brewery out on Long Island that I was sitting having dinner with my wife once, and I ordered a beer. I ordered a beer for the name, which I've been known to do, but it was called "Oops, I Hopped My Pants," and I was like, "How can you not order that beer? Like, I have to try that beer." And I did, and it was outstanding. Like, to the point where I then had to talk to the bartender about where it had come from. It turns out it had come from just a few miles down the road. It was a brewery no one had heard of. They had just started. I was like, I have to find out more about these people. So then I made it a point to find out more about their beer, their lineup, what they had, and then we went out and we shot an episode with them when they were still pretty new. And since then, and this was probably 6 years ago. Since then, they've exploded in this area.
Mhm.
They've opened a second location on the other side of Long Island. Their beer sells out wherever it goes, and they're really nice guys. They gave me beer for my wedding. Like I was allowed to choose certain beers to serve at the wedding, and I was like, I'm definitely serving some Sand City. And so I
Nice.
talked to them, and I was like, what do you have? Like, what do you have right now? What should I serve? You know, it is my wedding. It's a big day, so what should I serve? And then they were like, you know what? You were one of our champions before anybody else really knew about us. Just take it. Have a great wedding.
Oh, you kidding? Wow.
Yeah, they're special guys.
That's amazing.
There's another one. I do a lot of work at a fantastic theater down in Pennsylvania called the Fulton Theater in Lancaster, and there's a brewery in that neck of the woods called South County, which when I discovered them again a few years ago, they were in like this little strip mall, literally in the middle of nowhere. You walked out the back door and it was a cornfield. Quite literally, their back patio, you sat and there was a cornfield. And again, they were making some unbelievable IPAs, and like they had a juicy pale ale. It wasn't even an IPA that just sort of blew my mind. And so we shot an episode there, and sure enough, within a couple of years, they've just opened again. And I'm going to say this again for your viewers: if you're ever in Pennsylvania, look up South County Brewing. They opened a facility. I don't know how they managed to do it, but they did it. It looks like it belongs in Napa Valley. I mean, it's enormous, vaulted ceilings, timber,
Wow.
timber beams, huge outdoor patio area, fantastic food. But it looks like someone took a Napa or Sonoma winery and put it down in Pennsylvania and allowed them to make world-class beer. So,
Wow.
so I mean, I could go on and on, but I'll stop there. Those are three. Those are three that I really, really appreciate and love.
Very nice. Yeah. So I hate when beer geeks ask me. I hate when beer geeks ask me, "What's your favorite beer style? What's your favorite beer style?" Well, hell, my favorite one is always the one I'm having next.
Right.
However, I'm going to kind of rephrase that question a little bit and say, do you have a favorite beer season? There's a time of the year, or that you look forward to.
That's a good question. I don't think I've ever been asked that question. That's a really good question. No.
Okay.
Only because I find something that I really love in each season of the year.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a huge fan of big, dark, roasty, complex stouts.
Yeah, me too.
Put it in a barrel, let it age for as long as you want, and then pull it out and give it to me, and I'm going to be happy.
Oh, yeah, me too.
So I love wintertime, although I'll drink them any time of year, but that's when you can get them most easily.
Yeah.
I love the fall. I know pumpkin beers are frowned upon by many purists. And
it's a love-hate kind of thing.
It is. And trust me, like if it's saccharine sweet, or if it tastes fake, it's not for me. But I love the style when it's done well. And I also love those sort of roasty ambers and malty things that you can get in the fall that you can't normally get. I like a good Oktoberfest, which is actually more sort of late summer, early fall. But then I've also been going through a phase where I'm really loving pilsners and lagers because I'm enjoying the lower ABV and the lighter volume, and so and maybe that's just a function of the fact that it's the hottest summer ever. Um,
Yeah,
but
you guys don't typically get that kind of heat, do you?
no, not like this. No,
Right.
no,
I
yeah,
mean, we've been a little hotter than usual too, but I mean, you guys
yeah,
don't usually get this kind of heat.
not like this. No, and I mean, it's wintertime in Chile, and I was just reading today that they broke temperature records for heat
Oh my God, you're kidding.
over the last couple of days, and people are freaking out. They're like, "What's going on? It's winter there, and you're over 100 degrees." So I
Well,
don't know.
climate change doesn't exist, so how could that be
No,
happening?
right? Yeah, it's not a thing. But but
Okay, I promised I wouldn't get political, damn it.
I know, I
But
know, I know.
if you're gonna throw me, if you're gonna throw me grapefruits, I'm gonna hit
Yeah,
them over the fence.
yeah, I know. But yeah, because we were supposed to talk last week, and it was so hot here that everything was literally like sort of melting down.
Yeah.
Um, it was those were the days where in Arizona, if someone tripped and fell on the ground, they had to call the paramedics because they were getting third-degree burns. Oh, we
Crazy.
weren't that bad, but it was hot. Yeah,
Yeah, we were over 100 last week, and the humidity was just brutal. I mean, it was rather wicked.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Same. But can I take a beer break?
Yeah, go for it.
I wanna pop a second one,
There you go.
if that's okay with you. I have
Oh,
to,
hey,
I have to
drink
step
as
up
many as
here
you
for
want.
just a second. Um,
There's no last call on this show, Mark.
that's why I like it here.
Well, isn't it nice talking with Mark? So I've never talked with anybody from about Broadway from that neck of the woods. So it is interesting to have this conversation. I was just filling time while you were gone, but
I know, and you were doing it well.
was. Well, I took a drink. There was some dead time, but anyway, no, but it's true though. I mean, I've talked to. I had my first comedian last week on the show. I
I
don't know
saw
if you got a
that.
chance
I
to.
saw, yeah.
Ashley Zerner, no, but she's craft beer too. But it's funny. When I first started doing this podcast, I was of course, I do the beer and whiskey thing,
Yeah.
and I didn't want to necessarily steer away from that, but I kind of wanted to add to it, have
Yeah.
it more be like a pub conversation. So I've been lucky enough to get a lot of beer and whiskey guys, and I've had a couple national touring blues musicians on the show,
Oh, very
as
cool.
well as a lot of local musicians. But I also had one former top-ranked heavyweight contender, Travis Kaufman, did the show with me. If you're familiar with him, he was once ranked in the top 10.
That's impressive.
When I was talking with Ashley about coming on, I said, "You're my first comedian. I had never had a comedian on here, so that was a lot of fun too. So, but you're my first actor, so
I'm honored.
there you go. I appreciate that.
So
So,
I,
what are
I,
you
I
drinking?
just
What
I
are you
just
drinking
opened,
now?
this is actually a new one on me. Tate the Great.
Mm-hmm.
It's an IPA from Tilted Barn Brewing, which they're relatively new in our neck of the woods, but they are getting a lot of like just over the moon kudos for what they're doing. They're very 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 hot right now, and I saw them in my local. I'm very very lucky where I am in the city. I have a corner deli where the owner
Mm-hmm.
just loves craft beer. So
Wow, nice.
most corner stores you can get macro brews, and that's about it. Maybe a couple locals. This guy stocks whatever he can get. Um, and then I also have a beer distributor just down the street. And if I can't get something in one place, I can always get it in the other. But this is a new brewery for me, and I saw it, and I had to give it a try. I'm one of those guys who I have my favorites most definitely, but if I see something new, I'm always going to want to try something new.
Yeah.
So I'm going to try something new.
So what did you say that one was again?
It's an IPA. It's just they're
IPA?
just calling it American IPA, which is
Okay.
interesting.
And what was the ABV on it? Does it say?
It does, but you know what? You know what I have to do?
Oh, put the glasses. Sorry about that.
It's not too bad. 6.5.
All right.
Yeah, they're getting a lot of great attention in this neck of the woods. They are in Rhode Island.
Rhode Island. Okay. Nice.
Yeah, which is actually a little farther away than I had them in my brain. But we have a couple of barn-themed breweries that have opened over the last couple of years. But Tilted Barn is one of the ones that is people are fanatic about. So and I can tell you just from the nose that
Well, it's
I
got that hazy kind of look about it.
It sure does, doesn't it? Yeah.
I'm guessing a lot of citrus, some tropical fruit.
Yeah, a bunch of stone fruit,
Stone fruit,
lots
nice.
of grapefruit. Um, really nice. A little more bite on the end of it than I would have expected, but I think that's probably why they call it an American IPA as opposed to a New England or
Mhm.
or hazy or whatever, which most people are expecting and finding these days. It's really this is very good, very very good.
Nice. Well, it
And
looks good.
yeah,
It looks, it pours nice. Got that. You got a nice amount of head on there that you want. Yeah.
yeah. No, this is a keeper. I will definitely keep my eyes open for not only this beer but anything from Tilted Barn in the future because this is very good. Yeah. So
Very
thank
nice.
you for giving me an excuse to buy beer today.
Hey, I'm here for you, Mark. I am an enabler. I am definitely an enabler.
Well, if I can ever enable for you, just let me know.
Hey, I'll holler. I'll holler. Well, if I ever get to your neck of the woods, I will definitely look you up to show me where to go,
Absolutely,
or at
please
least
do.
tell me where to go.
Yes. Oh, I tell people where to go all the time.
Yeah, I was gonna say my wife tells me where to go all the time, but that's I've been to that location, so I'm quite
Yes,
familiar with that destination.
right. Yeah, I've spent a lot of time there. And likewise, if I'm in your neck of the woods, which is entirely possible, I will certainly let you know because I would love to. I mean, this is fun, but I would love to actually sit in your presence and share a beer with you.
That would be great. Yeah, if you ever find yourself getting close, anyway, let me know. I would definitely tell you what breweries you want to get to. Anyway,
Yeah.
we do have in Springfield's not a real big town. I don't know. I think we're listed at about 125, 125,000 these days.
Okay.
So we're not big, but we're not small either.
Okay.
But I think we've got I think we've got 10 breweries in town at the moment,
Yeah. I mean, that's the beauty of being
and
alive.
about a half dozen on the outskirts and the neighboring
Yeah.
towns that are right close.
That's the wonderful thing about being alive right now is, there's craft beer everywhere. If you love beer,
Yeah.
you
You're starting to see it like it was pre-prohibition, where you're getting a lot of these small neighborhood breweries.
yeah,
I think for a while it became a trend to do these big breweries, right? To have these big brew pubs
right,
or big
right.
production breweries. But I think we're starting to see more smaller brew houses open up, more neighborhood
I
type
had
locations.
one of our episodes was at Carton Brewing, which is
Hmm.
in New Jersey, not just across from New York City here. And their owner, Augie
Augie?
Carton, is Augie. He's a real character. Um, one of the things we talked about with him was, is there a saturation point? Is there a time when there are
Mhm.
too many breweries? And his answer stuck with me years later. I still think of it. It was such a great answer. He said, no, because if you're doing it right, there's always an audience for you. Like, do people ever say, "Do we have too many pizzerias?" Like in the mall, you can have a pizzeria on one end and a pizzeria on the other, but their pizza is going to be different. And you'll
Mhm.
either have a favorite or you'll go back and forth between the two of them, depending on what mood you're in. He said, and that's what it can be for breweries too. Like no two breweries are the same. They're all going to have different strengths and weaknesses, and they're going to give different things to their patrons. And as long as you have your own, let's say, voice, but like if you have your own
Mhm.
style, your own voice in the craft beer world, then you're going to be okay. And I always thought that was a great answer.
Yeah, it is a great answer. Yeah,
Because
I don't know Augie personally, but we have conversed through social media a lot,
you're
and
yeah,
we've got a couple mutual friends. But yeah, I've seen a lot in the beer community here. Folks have commented. There's a new brewery opening up. Do you want this new brewery to open up? And each the existing breweries will always help the new one. Give
yeah,
them advice. This, that, or the other, and help
yeah,
them. I've seen places, give newer breweries equipment and be there to help them
absolutely.
get through the tough spots, because there's
Yeah.
tough spots no matter what kind of brewery you're
Oh,
open.
always. Yeah. And that's
But
one of the
yeah, I mean,
beautiful things.
there's different niches, right? You've got got Mothers, which is our biggest production brewery, but they do have a little tap room. And we've got a brew pub, Springfield Brewing Company. But then there's other smaller breweries that have again, they have their own little audience. One is better for this style. One is better for this style.
Right, right,
Anytime I have a friend come to town, I say, well, where should I go, Tom? I said, well, what do you drink? If you like
right.
milkshakes and sours, I send them here. If you like this style, if you like Germans, if you like hazies, I send you here.
Yeah, yeah, totally. And that's one of the things we love about the craft beer world is that everybody's willing to help each other and to collaborate. It's not cutthroat. You know, I mean, on some levels, on certain levels and with certain personalities, it can be. But for the
Yeah.
most part, everybody's out there to help each other. They like to make beer together. They like to help each other out. One of the things we always say is brewers make great neighbors,
Mhm.
which we think is true because when you get a brewery in your community, 9 times out of 10 that brewery is going to give back.
Yeah.
They're going to be great neighbors. They're going to look out for people. They're going to be involved. Um, I have to tell an Augie Carton story since we just
All
his
right.
name.
All right.
So we were doing the Broadway Brews project where we take a Broadway show and pair them up, and we paired one up with Augie, um, purely randomly because he had seen the Hamilton beer. He was a big fan of the show Hamilton. He wanted to be involved. We like Augie. We love Carton, so we were like, absolutely. So we called him one day and we're like, what do you think about making a beer for School of Rock, the musical? Which is based on the Jack Black movie a few years ago. And he there was a pause and he sort of chuckled, and he ended up doing it. He made a great black IPA for us for that beer. It was outstanding. But it came out as we moved through the process that in his prior life, Augie worked on film sets. He was assistant director and he did a lot of stuff. He was one of the assistant directors for the movie School of Rock.
Oh, no kidding.
We didn't know that. We called him.
I would never know that either. Oh, wow.
Yeah. So that was a really, really.
Know.
There were a lot of strange coincidences that happened along the way. That was definitely.
Oh,
yeah. So everybody got a kick out of that. I think most especially Augie. But yeah.
Yeah, he was. I think it was last week or something. He put out on social media that he was hiring. I was kind of inquiring about it, just mostly out of curiosity. And then I mentioned it to my wife, and I said, "Well, how would you think about moving to New Jersey?" And she said, "No, there's no way I can have you." And then the two guys I do a lot of shows with, they've got a podcast called the Lager Room Guys, Jersey Johnny and Beer Samurai. I don't know if you've watched them, but they're very good.
Yes.
So my wife says, "There's no way we could put Jersey Johnny, Beer Samurai, and you in the same state. That's just not good for anybody." So.
Well, it's a big state, so if you decide to try to make the argument again, just let her know. And where they are is beautiful. It's right by the water. You could do a lot worse.
Yeah. I to be honest with you, I like the situation I have right now, but I thought about it for a second. I've got a good major gig. Then I work part-time at a small brewery in town called Banter Brewing. So, and again, that's one of those, like I was saying earlier, it's designed to be a neighborhood brewery.
Yeah.
It's a one barrel brew house that's designed to feed the neighborhood. Of course, people from not in the neighborhood come by, and that's great too. But that's what it was designed. It's designed to have that feel. There's no TVs at all in the brewery. It's designed to have people have a conversation.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of all things Irish.
Me too.
I'm guessing from your name, you might
have guessed.
And that's one of the things I love about like a real traditional Irish pub is there's not going to be a TV. They're not going to have like the video games in the corner or anything like that. It's about sitting down and respecting who's ever near you. But if they're up for having a chat, you're going to get to know the people around you. And you're going to actually talk to them and have a human conversation. I love that. Yeah. Have you been to Ireland?
I have not. We were looking into that. I guess by 2011, 2012, and then things happened to change, and then we weren't able to get. And then now I don't know. My wife and I will have to get us to a place where we will be able to. I don't know that we're there yet.
Okay. I will say a couple of things. It's life changing.
Is it?
For me, it was. And I will also say, if you ever get to the place where you are going, reach out to me, and I will give you a very long list of suggestions.
Oh, nice. Very nice. Okay.
That would be slightly off the beaten path. But honestly, the beaten path is beaten for a reason. Like it's usually really good.
Yeah.
But it's not that big an island.
Yeah.
So the things that are popular for a reason, but there's so much more to it.
Yeah.
I just saw I just saw the Young Dubliners.
Oh, really? Oh, I love them. Yeah.
It was my wife's birthday,
All right.
and so we headed out towards to Long Island, and they were playing at a venue I've never heard of before. I'm a big live music person too,
Mhm.
um, and I've always enjoyed listening to them. Never seen them live. They are
Oh, wow.
amazing. They're so good. Musicians, you know, they were just they're they're as a singer myself, I appreciate when I see someone whose talent sort of blows me away. And each one of them, which is of course the sign of a good concert, each one of them had their moments to shine, and I was just like, I cannot believe the guy just did that. But it was just great
Oh,
to
wow.
sit in a room with people who were speaking with an Irish accent, and you know, talking about Ireland, and it made me homesick for a place that I've never been able to call home.
Oh, yeah. Well, with that red hair, you must be of Irish ancestry yourself.
I am, I am indeed. It is my single favorite place in the world. Whenever I go, I confuse people because they think I'm Irish
Oh, yeah.
because of
Red
the way I
hair.
look.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
actually, the last time I was there, we were getting in a cab to go to the airport to leave. So I was, you know, obviously very sad, and and the cab driver kept shooting me this really strange looks, and I was like, did I say something? Did I offend him? Like, what's happening? And finally, he turned around and he was like, I just need to know. I can't figure out where your accent is from. What county are you from? And I was like, New York. And then he sort of just went, oh, okay. Um, but it made me laugh.
That's funny.
I've actually been in stores in Ireland, and like a busload of tourists will come in and do their thing and then leave, and I'm still there sort of looking around shopping, and heard the employees saying, you know, they're so glad that the American tourists were gone. and,
Oh,
and
yeah.
and I had to finally speak up and say, well, I'm American too, so you don't want to just, you know, yeah. But I do love it there, and
Oh,
there's a
very nice.
booming craft beer scene there now.
Really? See that? I didn't know
Booming.
that.
Yes, yes. It is much like where we were 5 or 6 years ago. There are places locally almost everywhere you go, and they're really good. And most of their beer, almost all of it, what at least when I was there and what I was trying was low ABV because
Yeah.
their focus is on taste
More
and
session.
longevity. You know, they want you to sit at the bar. They want you to
Mhm.
stay there for a while. They don't want you to have
Yeah.
a 10.2 beer and then sort of toddle off down the street to your B&B.
Uh,
They want you to sit there and listen to music and talk and do your thing.
yeah.
So it's yeah, so it's really cool to see them opening up to that. When I first started going there, it was, you know, Guinness, Harp, and Murphy's,
Mhm.
and you know, that was about it. And now you can find something local everywhere you go.
Oh, really? That's nice. That's
Yeah,
very nice.
yeah,
Yeah, my wife and I really aren't trendy kind of folks. We when we talked about going, we wanted to kind of go to the smaller towns.
yeah,
We're- like I said, I'm the perfect tourist. We want to go to the small towns, and we like everybody else do the popular stuff. We
exactly.
find the little nooks that nobody else has found.
Yeah, yeah. My rule is to just, I mean, I enjoy Dublin. It's a big city, but
Mhm.
it's an Irish city. So I'll spend a little time there, but then I'll go to the West Coast and I'll just try to find little villages that aren't very crowded, and I'll just sit and hopefully strike up a conversation with someone and get to know the area a little bit.
Well, both my wife and I have ancestry. Hers is up more
Hmm.
northern Ireland. Mine is oh gosh, Cork, I believe.
Ah, that's where my people are from. Yeah,
Really? How
yeah.
about that? Yeah, that's
We might be
funny.
related.
Hey, we might be. Yeah.
Listen, I knew I recognized.
I wouldn't be. I wouldn't be surprised to find out. But
No, me
I'm
either.
not. I am not giving my DNA to ancestry. I think that's how people get framed. I think it's a conspiracy. It's a government conspiracy to get everybody's DNA in one spot, and they figured out how to make you pay to do it.
I know, right? It's brilliant when you think about it.
Okay, that was my brief paranoid moment. There you go.
No, I mean, please, with AI and everything that's going on, like, you
Yeah,
know, I don't know if it's paranoid anymore to like sort of safeguard your DNA.
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, you can find mine about everywhere. But anyway, that didn't come out the way I wanted to, actually. But anyway,
It was still funny.
that went a different direction than I'd planned.
Very funny.
Anyways, hey Mark, I know you're a busy guy, so I won't keep you. I just want to thank you for joining me at the pub today. I forgot to say, I keep meaning to say this before we go on air, and I always forget. Don't jump off right away. I want to say something to you when we're done. But anyway, any last thing to say before we exit?
No, I mean, really, just first of all, thanks for anybody who's been watching or who watches from here on out. Um, I think you should continue to watch the show because it's really good.
Thank
Also,
you. Thank you.
continue to support your local breweries, you know,
Yeah.
and all of your local businesses. They're you know they've had a
Well,
tough few
and for
years.
you, I'll say local theaters.
Oh, for me, near me, or
Well, for me, I mean,
oh,
for your profession in general, support your local theater company.
absolutely. There's amazing work being done on stages, whether it's a community theater or a regional theater, or a local theater, or a Broadway theater, or a touring house.
Yeah.
Um, those people work really hard, and there are so many jobs attached to it. You know, like it's not just the people you see on stage. It's not even just the people on stage and the stagehands. It's the ushers. It's the people who work in the
Mhm.
box office. It's the people who help promote it. There's so much that goes into live performance. And then
Yeah.
of course you have all of those patrons coming into downtown areas or wherever they are, and they're going to get something to eat and go out for a drink afterwards. And some of them travel and they'll stay in a local hotel or a B&B. So it really helps your local community to support all of those things. Um, so look for that. Support live entertainment. We could use it. We still could use it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
We can always use it. Um, yeah, but support live music for the same reasons. A lot of musical acts with streaming and everything that's going on now, the way they make most of their money is to perform live. So
Yeah.
support them, show up. There's nothing like sitting in a room and listening to amazing musicians and singers live.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
It's exciting, it's thrilling. It's not the same as streaming it. So basically, just like take care of each other. Support local stuff, support local businesses, support local. So just support your neighbors, basically.
That's exactly right. Yeah, see, I listen to almost solely Spotify anymore, and they don't really pay their artists a lot. So anytime I can buy a hard copy, especially from local artists,
Yeah.
even though I've got several discs sitting here on a coffee table that aren't even open, and
Yeah.
they might not ever get open because I've got it through Spotify. But I mean, you're right. The Spotify doesn't pay them a lot of money, so yeah, any chance I could buy a disc, I buy the hard copy for that
That's
reason.
great. I mean, I don't go to a lot of live performances now. I pick and choose, but that's why like I'll pick up their T-shirt because that's a way of
Mhm.
like, directly supporting them. And during the lockdown, I would go online and find music venues which had been closed for obvious reasons, and I would like order T-shirts and hats from
Yeah.
them to sort of throw them a couple bucks to help them get through to the other side. So, basically just take care of each other and watch Tom's show because it's really good.
I thought it was great. I know I sort of let you go, but in this, you mentioned something. I thought it was great during the pandemic. The Dropkick Murphys, I'm a big fan, and they were doing a lot of free shows online.
Yes, they were. Yeah, a lot of artists did that.
Yeah.
In fact, and yes, huge Dropkick Murphys fan here as
All
well.
right. Okay. Me too. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I know I watched a
Like,
few from Lyle Lovett was doing several kind of singer songwriter deals, and he had one with Steve Earle that was just, I mean, outstanding. So, oh my God, I'm there watching, going, oh my God, why is everybody not watching this?
I have a fun Lyle Lovett story, and I
All
promise I
right.
won't take up too much time. But so I was doing a show in Milwaukee. This was just last fall, and it was in sort of a complex, and there was the theater on one side, and then a live music venue on the other. And Lyle Lovett was playing there with John Hyatt,
Mm.
and but their showtime conflicted with ours. So I was like, I can't believe he's going to be like 350 feet away from me, and I'm not going to get to see them. So I walked across, and I was like, "Can I just buy a ticket? It's only they're probably only going to play for 20 more minutes, but I'll just buy a ticket." But the box office was closed. They were like, "There's nothing we can do to help." So I was walking, and then I was passing the side, and one of the ushers who was outside noticed me like looking in and trying to see what. She was like, "What's up?" And I explained to her what was going on, and she said, "You know what? Come on in. They've only got a few more minutes left." So I went in and I caught like the last two or three songs and they talked a little bit.
Oh, that's
And it
awesome.
was thrilling. And then I tweeted it, or maybe I X'd it. I don't know what it is to do. But but I put something about it online, and he got back to me just online and was like, glad you made it in, glad it worked out. So that was a
Oh wow.
very, very cool experience. Yeah.
Did you think Musk should write a book called "How to Ruin a Platform in 3 Easy Steps"?
Oh, it didn't take long, did it? Wow. I,
How to blow 44 million in 3 easy
I
steps.
know. I mean, it just makes you feel like he
Why
intentionally
would you buy
wanted
an
to.
existing platform then change the name? I
Be-
can't make that make sense.
No, and one of the most recognized brands and
What?
logos, and it was a verb to tweet. It was a
Yeah.
and yeah, none of it makes sense to me. But you know what? A lot of things don't make sense to me these
That's
days. It's
right. Hey, I do want to mention real quick. Last beer had commented, "Great conversation, cheers." So, want to thank them for throwing that. Oh man. Okay. One more time with feeling. Hey, thanks, Mark. I appreciate you joining me at the pub. I would really like to do this again. So I'm going to try to get a copy of the book. And when I'm able to sit down and read it, I'll bring
okay.
you back again. Or I might wait till you get that second one out so I can cover both of them with
And
you.
yeah,
So,
very soon. Yeah, there's a lot of
all right.
beer in there. There's a lot of beer. There's a
Is
lot of
there?
music. Yeah,
Okay, great.
yeah.
I hope the print is big.
Um, and you know what? Get the Kindle version.
I'll just have to get
They get
better glasses. That's all. These things, man. Back when I didn't need glasses till I had perfect vision till I hit 40. Then everything just went to hell in the handbasket.
Yep.
Now at 58, I'm damn near blind. In fact, I had great eyesight. My wife had glasses when we met 100 years ago, but now my eyes are worse than hers.
Yeah, it happens, right? I mean, we like to pretend it doesn't, but it does. I know. Look,
Hey, great.
I got these on right now. So
Thanks for joining me, man. I appreciate it. I
it was
am
my
Tom
pleasure.
the Beer Whisperer, Beer Evangelist, Brother Beer Drinker, Premier Wisdom all around good guy. Hey, thanks for everybody that tuned in.